Did you know that this was coming to an end today? You said this kind of, you weren't quite prepared for.
I knew that there were ongoing conversations. I don't think you can ever know until there's an announcement about exactly when something's going to come to an end.
So what was your reaction when you first heard?
Relief. I'm really glad that we're going to be able to go back to doing the people's work and get the remaining 140-ish policy and budget bills moved forward. And I was relieved to hear Senator Bertriger's statement that he at least thought they went out over 2020 and that it wasn't appropriate to start bringing up a lot of other bills at this point.
Yes, the Senate President indicated that this was very fragile still. Do you still feel like this is very fragile and it's unknown whether they will return tomorrow?
You know, if Senator Bertriger felt comfortable getting up there and making a statement to all of you that they're coming back tomorrow, then I think they're coming back tomorrow. I'd like to take him at his word. And I think that's important. And he said they're coming back, so I expect them to be back tomorrow. Is it fragile? Yes, it's fragile. And I hope that everybody, Republicans and Democrats alike, chooses to be on their most professional, civilized behavior over the next couple of days so we can get the people's work done.
He said that mistrust, Bertriger said that mistrust was really high in Salem. This was maybe the highest he's ever seen it here. Would you agree with that on both sides?
You know, it's hard. I think there's a lot of disappointment. I'm a generally very trusting person, which is why I'm choosing to take Senator Bertriger at his word. And I like to believe that people are honorable and behave with integrity. So I'm going to take him at his word, and I'm going to continue to try to take all of my colleagues at their word moving forward.
You talked about earlier this week, you sat down with us, talked about the different policy bills and the different budget bills that still need passing. We are now, I know that some of the rules are being suspended, but there's not a blanket suspension. So what does that mean for the bills you're most passionate about? Do you think that any of them are now off the table? What's getting scrapped?
To the best of my knowledge, the conversations have solely been about House Bill 2020, and I don't think there have been any specific conversations, but again, I'm not the one having the direct negotiations with Senator Bertriger. Senator Courtney's doing that.
What bills are you afraid might get scrapped?
I'm really not prepared to hypothesize about that right now. I really hope that every other bill that's in the queue will pass at this point. They said that they were out because of 2020. As I said, would like to take them at their word, and that everything else that has come out of Ways and Means at this point, because all the bills that are left now are pretty much out of Ways and Means or rules, and that we're going to be able to move them forward because they're all important in their own ways. Some of them might.
How do you feel about how this was all handled and what's happening here? I mean, is enough being done to prevent this from happening again? I mean, what do you feel about going forward?
I think it's really too soon to conjecture, make any kind of conjectures about that. I'm really focused on the next 48, well, really more like 60 hours, 60 hours almost exactly, till 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. I hope we're out before then, but once we've gotten through the people's work this session, then we can start having conversations about how to move forward from here.
To be more specific, can you address Peter Courtney's performance during this walkout? He's had a lot of criticism, especially from environmentalists.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I think Peter Courtney is a highly effective legislator. I think he's a highly effective Senate president. I think we needed somebody with his expertise and experience in negotiation, and with his understanding of the importance of maintaining the function of the institution here. I get that people are quibbling and that some people are very disappointed. I'm disappointed that 2020 won't pass this year, but Senator Courtney has always been incredibly respectful of his caucus members in letting them vote how they choose to vote. We've never been told we have to vote a certain way on a policy bill on the floor. And there are members of my caucus who are choosing to vote no. And he has never been someone who pushes that and says you have to vote a certain way on behalf of the caucus. He lets people vote their conscience.
You might be one of those members.
No, I'm not. I'm a yes.
Senator, there seems to be a difference between a lot of the Senate Democrats I talk to who insist that policy bills need to come first, and what Senator Bertriger said today, which is that budget bills should come first. And that seems like that could lead to potentially disagreement. I mean, how do you think that might work out?
Well, I think that's a logistical negotiation that probably the Senate President's office is engaged in with Senator Bertriger. And I the House still has about 11 bills that they haven't voted on yet that are House bills. So those are bills that we can't even vote on until the House has voted on them. And some of them are pretty important budget bills that a lot of people, Democrats and Republicans alike, want to see passed. So with regard to the rest of the bills, I don't know what the exact order is. We'll do all the Senate bills first because that's what we always do. And then what order we do all the House bills in, I don't know the exact answer to that question.
Do you have a position on what you would like? I guess because there's a worry that putting policy bills to last risks them being further concessions in a session that's already had concessions.
You know, I'm going to go back to what I said. Senator Bertriger said they walked because of 2020,
Right.
and that at this point they're back because 2020 is off the table. And now I hope that that's true, and we're going to be able to pass all of the remaining bills, budget or policy. I think we'll just wait and see what happens on the floor and how that get
Democrats
negotiated.
could have done something better here. Is there room for improvement? Renew Oregon said it's disappointed in Democratic leadership in the handling of this bill.
I don't think I really want to offer a conjecture on that. I mean, or a perspective on this. I think that one of the biggest challenges is that, as several people have pointed out, there are 90 sovereign legislators in this building. Each of us is representing our own constituency. And while you can have leadership, I mean, you heard Senator Bertriger say that he initially didn't want to walk out. And he worked hard to try to convince his caucus not to walk out. They overruled him. He agreed. They walked out. So leadership doesn't always get to do what leadership thinks is the best idea. And there are a lot of different ways that you can handle a complicated situation. But the long and the short of it is, the way the Constitution of the state of Oregon reads, we have to have 20 senators to do the people's business. And short of finding there's just no way to bring them back. We wouldn't bring them back by force. There's nothing we could do about that. So we were a little stuck.
What do you say to people who voted for Democrats on climate change, and now it looks like Democrats are kind of waving the white flag? Can you just go over thought process of, okay, at this point we're running out of time and there's way too much ahead of us, we have to throw cap and tree out the window?
It's not that. It's not a question of time. It's a question of votes. As we like to say in the trade, we have a constitutional problem. We do not have 16 votes for House Bill 2020. We don't. Senate President Courtney made that statement from the podium the other day, and it's accurate. And so it's not a question of time. It's a question of votes.
Did you lose the votes because of this?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you lose the votes because of this walkout?
No. I think people had substantive concerns. Some people had substantive concerns. And, as I said, each of us represents our own district. And many people have reasons why their districts might or might not be comfortable with 2020. And, to say that Democrats are a monolithic entity is problematic. You have a pretty darn wide range even among the 18 senators, let alone if you look at the House Democrats. And to the people who said that they sent us here to run this bill, I would say that there are a lot of very important bills that have taken multiple sessions to get through the legislature. The governor is very clear, the presiding officers are very clear, everybody's very clear that we want to continue to work on this issue, that we think it's very important that Oregon be in a leadership position about it, and we want to keep working on it. Nobody's giving up. And while I get that a lot of people wanted this implemented at the beginning of 2021, in the grand scheme of things, just moving it forward at some point soon is a great thing. And Oregon can be a leader in that regard. And I look forward to continuing to work on it, as do, I think, many of my colleagues.
Referring back to the compromise or the initial walkout and some of those essential promises that were made between each party, one of them was a reset on 2020. And from your end, it was a don't walk out again. So what would you say to that?
I wasn't party to that original agreement, and I know that there's some kind of a letter circulating around. I haven't seen it. And I think it's very problematic to speculate on a conversation you weren't part of. So I don't really have anything to offer on that.
Senator, will there have to be initial committee meetings scheduled this weekend?
There will always have to be. There are always there are always some last-minute committee meetings for conflict amendments, things like that. So I'm sure Ways and Means will meet at least once more to deal with conflict amendments. Beyond that, I think there may be some stuff that Rules has to deal with. I don't remember exactly, but there are always some last-minute committee meetings in the last few days of session. That won't be any different this year.
Generally speaking, just what do we have left to do? What is the biggest things that Democrats want passed this weekend?
At this point, I really don't want to characterize it as Democrat or Republican. I mean, I was talking to Representative Finley from Ontario the other day, and he was talking about the bill to increase the 911 tax. That's really important for public safety across this state. And I really respect the work that he's put into that. That shouldn't be a partisan priority. He happens to be a Republican. I happen to be a Democrat. We both think it's a good idea. And so I'm at the point now where I don't really want to characterize bills one way or another. I think that, and I don't want to give more weight to any one of the remaining bills. They're all out there, they're all in the queue, and we need to pass them all.
Can you
Could you
go
just
through what
condense
some of
down-
the budget bills are, just explain?
Sure.
About what some of the budget bills
Sure.
waiting to be dealt with are.
Well, I mean, the Oregon Health Authority budget hasn't passed. That's our Medicaid program, that's our public health program. There are a lot of new things that are in that budget. The Department of Human Services hasn't passed. There's significant funds for new child welfare workers and to support foster parents better. There's funding to pay increased rates to people who provide support to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. That's important. Department of Corrections hasn't passed. State Police hasn't passed. There is money in the budget for 40 new state troopers. That's really, really important. Our state troopers are at a level that they haven't been at. The lowest level was since 1969. I think that's a problem for the people of Oregon and the people, especially in rural areas where there isn't sufficient state police presence to help us keep safe or to support local law enforcement. So there are some pretty substantive budgets there. There are also some important projects in some of the bills that came out of capital construction and then Ways and Means earlier this week. There are bonding projects for community health centers, for dams that are at risk of failure, for a great project to provide bonding for levees in the state because levees are in danger across the state. And if you live behind a levee that's decertified by the Army Corps of Engineers, you can't get flood insurance and you can't get crop insurance and you can't get rancher insurance to protect because if your cattle are out there. So that's a really important thing. There's an enormous amount of money in the budget for bonding for housing of one kind or another. And we know what the housing crisis looks like statewide. And we have to be investing in housing across the entire state. There is not a single part of the state that isn't dealing with a housing crisis. So that's just a fraction of them, Dick, but that's a big chunk. Those are significant issues.
I'm wondering if you can just distill down, because we've had 2 walkouts this session, so taking a step back, that's unprecedented in however many decades going back, that we'd have 2 in one session. So what is your read as someone in this chamber? Why did this happen this section?
I really don't think I can offer any thoughts on that. I've been really focused on just helping them get back and so we can get down to work. I think there are all sorts of things one could consider, and I don't have a lot of direct knowledge, so I prefer not to conjecture on that.
You obviously done a lot of work on the budget bills this year. Were you ever concerned that they wouldn't be passed?
No, because we could come back in special session. I would like them passed because there are good new programs, as I mentioned. I mean, we'd like to be able to hire. Superintendent Hampton tells me he's got plenty of qualified candidates that he could hire his 40 state troopers almost immediately. That's really important to get them trained and equipped and up and running as soon as possible. Department of Human Services, hire more child welfare workers. They couldn't do that under a continuing resolution. But we have the continuing resolution, and that would have held us through till the middle of September. We could have come back in special session. I just don't want to delay important new investments.
One more.
Do you expect a special session?
Do I expect a special session? I don't think I can comment on that. It depends a lot on what we get done and what else is out there, and if that's at the governor's discretion.
If the governor does call a special session, what's stopping any of your colleagues from renaming the bill, giving it a new number, and then passing the same legislation?
I really can't even begin to tell you. That has a lot of conjecture in that statement, and it's hard to respond to a lot of hypotheticals. You had one more question. You were waiting.
Fair Sugar said that funding for special projects in their district were threatened over the walkout, like you got calls from the governor's office. As head of Ways and Means, is that something that you have heard of or something that you are aware of?
I know that some people have advocated for that. The budget that we passed out of Ways and Means on Tuesday, the budget bills that we passed out, included every single project that had originally been in the bills. Those bills, as I mentioned, are important projects regardless of whose district they're in. Those are community health centers, those are dams, those are a psychiatric facility for the room space for the Umatilla County Jail. I don't want to punish the citizens in counties represented by Republicans by not funding those projects. I think that's a bad idea, and I can't speak for what the governor's going to do, but I think in general she agrees. These are important to the citizens of Oregon, and they're going to provide important services that people in the state need. So I think we need to focus on that first.
Why not put HB 2020?
I think I'm all done. Thank you very much. Thank you.